Welcome to Flawless Shoe Reviews. In this video I'm going to compare the New Balance FuelCell Rebel V4 with the Asics Novablast 5. Historically they've been two of the most popular performance-based shoes on the market. However, recent updates to each model have changed their purpose. I'm going to touch on how they now differ and also explain about how the shoes can influence medical conditions. So if we look at the FuelCell first, they've got a nice wide toe box, so facilitates those of you with a wider foot. It's a true to size and length, however they've got a quite aggressive toe spring which can make it feel a little bit shorter. Not necessarily enough to get a half size up, but for those of you that try it for the first time, you might just feel that's a little bit tight on the front, but it stretches over time. They've got a gusseted tongue that's quite thin on top, and they've got quite a thin level of padding around the heel counter. In contrast to that, with the Novablast 5, you've got a much more padding around the heel counter and a nice pull-on tab. Having minimal padding around the heel counter can make it a little bit irritable for sensitive heels, so those of you with bursitis or Haglund's deformity. When we look at the tongue on the Novablast, it's a little bit more padded, gusseted as well. We've got good space in the toe box, not as wide as what we get in the New Balance, and it's true to size and length. When we move down the shoe, they're completely different. So we've got an updated midsole in the Novablast, which is a FF Blast Max cushioning. So this is a much softer, more plush cushioning than we got in the Novablast 4. So you sink into it a little bit more. It still has good energy return, but not as aggressive as what we got in the previous model. In the FuelCell, we've got a much more aggressive PIBA midsole, which is more of a performance-based midsole. So it has tremendous spring to it, really good responsiveness. It really pushes you back out when you initiate contact with the ground. It's also got a much more aggressive geometry than we see in the Novablast 5. So you can see on the FuelCell, it's got a really big heel bevel on the back and aggressive forefoot rocker. Not as aggressive in the heel in the Novablast, although it still has a good forefoot rocker. Then, in terms of stability for the shoes, we classified the FuelCell as a stable neutral and the Novablast as a classic neutral shoe. The reason for that is that we've got some sidewalls on the outside and the inside of the shoe on the FuelCell. These come up cradle to heel, add elements of stability. We've got nice sole flare and a broad base of support in the forefoot and the midsole in the FuelCell, just adding elements of stability to the shoe. And whilst we have similar features in the Novablast 5 with some sidewalls, sole flare and broad base of support, as the midsole is a little bit squishier, you sink into it a little bit more, it therefore just makes it a little bit more unstable underfoot. Therefore, we classify it as a classic neutral. When we think about the drop, we've got a 6mm drop in the FuelCell, an 8mm drop in the Novablast, much lighter in the FuelCell, so coming in at 218 grams for size 9 men's US, whereas we come in at 255 grams for the same size in the Novablast 5. It has a 8mm drop, whereas we have a 6mm drop in the FuelCell, with 30mm in the rear foot, 24 in the forefoot. In contrast to that, in the Novablast, we have 41.5 in the rear foot, 33.5 in the forefoot. That makes the forefoot a lot more padded and a lot stiffer, so it's better for forefoot conditions because it gives you that extra bit of protection, whereas we've got a much more flexible toe box in the FuelCell. So in terms of their use cases, yes, they've definitely changed. So in the Novablast 5 compared to the 4, it's less performance orientated, it's more focused on comfort, it's less aggressive. So as we said, the midsole, you sink into it a little bit more, so it's an excellent shoe for doing long miles, for being in for a long period of time, for those easy runs, recovery runs. You can still do some up-tempo interval work with it, it's just not as quick to turn over as what we got in the 4. Whereas in the FuelCell Rebel V4, it's very aggressive, really responsive midsole, so it can cover everything that the Novablast can do, but it's also really helpful and really good at race pace work, and it can be used as a non-plated racing shoe as well. If you've got any questions on the shoes, drop them in the comment section below. If you found the video helpful, like and share and subscribing is always appreciated. You can pick up links to the shoe in the description. Purchasing through these links helps fund our channel without affecting the price that you pay. Thank you very much for watching.